Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up, buddy? What did I say that was wrong?
Hi. No. Here's the thing: is that you didn't say anything that was like inherently wrong. It's just you just kept
Could be
it so
misleading.
general.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. It can be misleading. The essential thing is that we've done a lot of research into like the area of like nature versus nurture and like how we are and how different personality traits are determining things like that.
Sure.
And a lot of people don't like to talk about this because it's like it's very dangerous to say these things publicly because because when people misunderstand it, then they can get a whole bunch of ideas that, oh, that this means that conversion therapy can work and things like that. But essentially, the more we look into sexuality, particularly, and the more we look into most things in general, really, the more we discover that that nurture really is way more important than nature, especially in respect to like the first what we call like the first few formative years of development in psychology, which is typically like from age 0 to like age 5, right? And those what happens to you in those first few years determines so much about your personality, like so incredibly much.
Sure, I
And
understand what you're saying, and I'm probably
yeah.
going to agree with everything what you say.
Mhm,
I guess like the thing that I came away with the most is that growing up, the
mhm,
nature nurture distinction was always very important to me. But it seemed like the
mhm,
more that I listened to people like Robert Sapolsky or the different like genetics
mhm.
papers and shit that we would just read the abstracts of, that viewing things as nature versus nurture, that dichotomy doesn't exist and that they're very much interwoven. So when you say things like
Yeah.
nurture is far more important, that's kind of true. But the nurture is really just the environment acting on certain pre-existing genetic factors, right?
Yes, to a certain extent, but
Well, to
it's
every extent, right? Like who you are is
yeah,
fully determined by your biology, but your
yeah,
biology
yeah.
can only express itself in a given environment, right?
Yes, yeah. That is true, but it's just that the more research we do, the more we look into it, the more we really find that like especially with difference like very specific things, but
Mm-hmm.
like you can really change a lot just by nurture alone.
Sure, I
And
agree
like
with that. Yeah.
and like if you take two people with like very different biological traits and raise them in the exact same environment, you're gonna get a pretty well the same person. And the two people that you see in front of you by the time that they're about 20 are
Well,
going to be very, very similar to each other in
I
terms of
don't
personality,
know.
obviously not in terms of physical characteristics.
I don't know. Hold on. Wait. So I'm
Hmm.
sorry. I'm not trying to do that. Wait. So what is your background in
No, sure.
this?
Okay, so I have a master's of education and my undergraduate and my undergraduate degree in psychology. My master's of education is in developmental psychology.
Gotcha.
So
And
so
your
I
claim
so
is
I
that if you
literally
take two
study how
people, yeah,
people
if you take
develop
two people from different genetic backgrounds and you raise them in a
in
similar,
the in the exact same environment, right? This is very hypothetical.
yeah, I would 100% say that this is totally hypothetical, and
Mhm.
we don't have. I don't think you can make that claim. I don't think we have the experimental data to make that claim.
No, I mean like like
Uh-huh.
I'm just extrapolating from the research that we have right now, and I believe with the research that I've read and the experience that I have, I can say that with some degree of certainty. I'm of course not saying this is like 100% true because of
Mm-hmm.
course this is an impossible thing to test, right? Because we can never do this. But
Sure.
it's just especially in respect to sexuality, this is why it's so important. Is that we really discovered that, and this is what we don't like to. I'm still on the fence as to whether or not it's responsible to say this
Mm-hmm.
to like a huge group of people, but I do think truth is very important.
Sure. I guess like the statement
Yeah,
that I'm comfortable making is I'm very comfortable saying that nurture is the thing that we can change right now. So we ought to figure out the best way to impact the environment to make favorable changes with people, and that we
yeah,
should,
of course,
yeah, leave it at that for now.
yeah,
I don't
100%.
like making strong claims one way or the other, especially dealing with all the
No,
fucking
yeah.
race realist dipshits I've had to
No,
fucking talk
I
to.
know,
Yeah.
and this is with those people is why I get sort of like iffy about like talking about this stuff because what we have found is that sexuality is more pretty. The more the research it, the more we find that it really is a nurture thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that you can change it at all. What we found is that sexuality really a lot of it comes down to being determined with what happens to you within the first those first few 40 years of development.
Wait. So what are
Now,
like some theories on like what makes somebody gay?
so some theories that we have, I don't know. It's funnily enough, some of the old like meme ones are actually kind of true. Like, have you ever heard the one that like that a boy who's like coddled by their mother
Mm-hmm.
is the one that is to some respect true. So when we look at like I think that this used to be called like the standard American family. You know like mother and father and 3 kids, right? That used to be like the sort of like Petri just family. So when you look at families like this with like 3 kids, the youngest child. Now I can't remember if it's both sexes or not, or if it's just boys. I have to look back at it again. But I know for sure with just boys, the youngest boy is statistically more likely to be gay.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I would have to look into more of that. I'm totally ignorant of that research. If that exists, I don't know anything about that at all.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll look into that.
It's very interesting. But and again, we've come up with there's been different ideas as to why that is. But we've also found out that having a strong connection with your mother, specifically, makes you statistically more likely to be gay as well.
Sure. Can I ask though, is it possible that there might be a genetic factor that influences you having a stronger connection with your mother?
So here's where it gets interesting too. Well, first of all, like determining a genetic factor, that's something that's kind of impossible to determine.
Yeah, I know this is my problem.
Yeah.
When you talk about things like heritability, even like.
But here's where I can sort of maybe like explain it a little bit. Is that one of the things that we used to think, and I think this is sort of fallen out of a lot of favor now, is that did you ever heard the whole thing about like when a woman has more boys than sorry, I had to apologize to stream for my stutter because I know.
No, fuck him. Don't worry about it, dude. You're totally brave for coming on and talking with a stutter. Holy shit! I don't know if I would ever be brave enough to do this. So go for it.
I'm just fucking arrogant, so I like arguing with people. No, so right. So I don't know if you've ever heard that this whole thing that when a woman gives birth to more boys, then the more pregnancies that she goes through, her body gets better at sort of in respects feminizing the fetus by attacking like a very specific male hormone that's created in the womb, right?
I didn't know this, but okay.
Yeah, so there's actually like some YouTube videos that talk about this too. Some older YouTube videos that used to like explain homosexuality. So you can actually look these up pretty easy. I can't remember what they're called, but
somebody linked a wiki called "Fraternal Birth Order and Male Sexual Orientation." Yeah. Okay, sure.
So that sounds about right to where it is. So we used to look at that and say, oh, okay, well this gives good credence to like the genetic part of homosexuality, right? Because like this is a good explanation to it. But so that's where originally we got the idea that like the youngest boy, the younger the boy, more likely that they are to be gay. But then what we found is when we started doing tests, when we started doing studies looking into their relationships with their mother, we started finding out that regardless of the birth order, completely regardless of the birth order, how many kids like the mother had, et cetera, the stronger your bond with your mother, the more likely you are to be gay.
Gotcha.
Which kind of blew that whole thing out of the water.
Sure. Right? But again, it's interesting if that's caused by genetic factors itself, right? Like that you can run down this rabbit hole for so long. Yeah.
We definitely don't have the means to test that now.
That's why the danger of this, the reason why I prefer to phrase things the way I do is because even if something is caused heavily by biological factors, genes necessarily have to express themselves in an environment.
Right.
So as long as we can change the environment, even if it is a biological factor, we can still probably influence it, right?
So here's the thing, right? And this is what I really want people to understand because it's so critical.
Yeah.
And because this is what I literally look at every single day. This is what like my studies are surrounded by. Is the more we look into those first few formative years of development. This is what I want people to understand because like this is why you can't say like, oh well, since it's caused by environment, then that means I can change it. No, what we found is that what happens to you during those first few formative years, like the ages like 0 to 5. Whatever happens to you in that period it's just as strong, if not we can't say stronger, but I'm just trying to hyperbolic.
Sure.
But it's just as strong.
18-year-old Peterson fan, by the way.
In you, right? Those experiences that you have that shape you play just as strong a role as whatever your genes say to you. It is so critical what happens. It's the reason why trauma that happens to you during those first few years make it almost impossible to solve. Like if you're like molested or something like that, or something really awful happens to you during those first few years of development, like 0 to 5, man, it is almost impossible to work through that. Like people who go through that kind of trauma that young, the prognosis for them is terrible. It's honestly really terrible. Like so just because like even though we say like, oh, it's sort of like an environmental thing, that doesn't mean you can change it at all. It's no different than trying to say you want to change your genetics, because that's how strong the impact is.
Sure. Okay, cool. Well, hey, listen, I appreciate the conversation.
No problem. I just thought, like, yeah. And also, if you ever want, just FYI, if you ever want any information about like autism or ADHD, that's my area of expertise. That's what I specialize in. So if you ever need somebody to talk about that, then that's
Oh shit.
me.
Well, my kid has ADHD, so maybe we can talk about that sometime.
I that's one of my specialties, and I also have ADHD.
Oh,
I have
cool.
ADHD and autism. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, hey, thanks a lot.
No problem.
Yeah,
at
I
all.
appreciate
Yeah.
the conversation, buddy.
If you ever want somebody to talk to about that, you can reach out to me.
Sure
I'm very
thing.
open to talk about those things.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
No problem. Bye.